I used to avoid mirrors and bright light. Not because I didn't care about how I looked, because I did, and what I saw felt like it belonged to someone else. Tired. Flat. Like my hair had given up before I had. If that's you right now, I want you to hear this clearly. The problem was never your age. It was the haircut. There are 7 specific cuts that instantly soften the years, add richness, and bring back the kind of elegance that makes people look twice. And today I'm walking you through every single one, with the exact words to use in your next salon appointment. I researched the best haircuts and styling fixes for women over 60, so you don't have to guess what actually works. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every week. Part 1. The cut that erases a decade overnight. Here's something most women never get told. The single biggest thing aging your face isn't your skin. It's the shape sitting around it. A blunt, heavy haircut pulls every feature downward. It drags the eyes, drags the mouth, drags the whole impression of your face toward tired. And most women don't even know that's what's happening. They just feel like the mirror stopped being kind. I felt this exact thing 2 winters ago. I'd kept the same below the shoulder, one length cut for almost a decade because it felt safe. Familiar. Then a friend took a photo of me at dinner, side-lit, and I almost didn't recognize the woman in it. Heavy. Flat. Older than I felt inside. That photo sat in my mind for weeks. The fix is the long layered bob, what stylists call a long layered lob. This is the single most transformative cut for women over 60, and there's a real reason why. Layers cut into the ends lift weight away from the jaw and cheekbones, and that lift does something almost magical. It opens the whole face upward instead of letting it sag downward. Ask your stylist for long layers starting at the cheekbone, with face framing pieces cut shorter around the front. That phrase matters. Cheekbone level layering is what separates a cut that softens you from one that just shortens your hair. Here's what actually happens when this cut goes in. The layers create movement instead of a static block of hair. Movement reads as energy, and energy reads as youth. That's not a coincidence, it's how the eye processes a face. A one-length cut sits still and heavy. A layered lob moves when you turn your head, catches light differently at every angle. And that visual liveliness is doing work your skincare routine never could. Ask specifically for point cutting at the ends rather than a blunt razor line. Point cutting softens the very tips of the hair so nothing reads as harsh or severe against your face. The length matters too. Landing right at or just below the collarbone is the sweet spot. Shorter can look severe on some face shapes at first, and longer starts pulling weight back down, undoing the whole lift you just paid for. Collarbone length lob, cheekbone layering, point cut ends. That combination is doing 3 separate jobs at once. Lifting, softening, and adding motion. The snapback moment came for me about 3 weeks after my own cut. I was at the grocery store, and a cashier I didn't know asked where I'd had my hair done because she wanted whatever that was. I hadn't done anything else. Same skincare, same makeup, same everything. Just the shape around my face had changed, and suddenly people were reading me as 10 years younger without me saying a word. But there's a second layer to this fix, and it's the one almost nobody talks about. How the layers are angled matters as much as where they start. Ask for internal layering, which means layers cut inside the hair rather than only at the visible edges. Internal layering removes bulk from underneath without changing the outer silhouette, so the cut still looks full and rich, not thin or sparse. This is the detail that keeps a layered lob from ever looking like it's trying too hard. It just looks like your hair at its best. I also want you to understand why this cut specifically flatters women in their 60s and beyond. Biologically, hair changes texture as we age. It often loses some of its natural body, sits flatter against the scalp, and can look thinner even when it isn't. Layers counteract every one of those changes at once. They create the illusion of volume through movement rather than density, they break up flatness with dimension, and they distract from any texture changes by keeping the eye moving across the shape instead of settling on any one flat section. Here's the before and after in plain terms. Before, a heavy one-length cut sitting past the shoulders, static, pulling the whole face down, reading as tired even on a good day. After, a collarbone-length layered lob, cheekbone layering, point cut ends, internal layering removing bulk, lifted soft alive with movement, reading as a full decade younger without touching a single other thing about her appearance. And that's just the first cut. What comes next might surprise you even more, because the second transformation on this list doesn't add length or layers at all. It does the exact opposite, and it works even faster. Part 2. The fringe that rewrites your whole face, and the pixie that follows it. Most women think a fringe is risky. It's the opposite. It's actually the fastest, lowest commitment way to look years younger, and almost nobody over 60 is using it correctly. The trouble usually isn't whether to get one. It's the wrong kind. A blunt, straight-across fringe cut hard at the eyebrow line does something unflattering to a mature face. It shortens the forehead in a way that can look severe rather than soft, and it doesn't move with you. It sits like a helmet edge. I've seen so many women try a fringe once, hate the result, and swear off fringes forever, when the real issue was never the fringe itself. The fix is the curtain fringe. Ask your stylist specifically for a curtain fringe, parted at the center, blended into face-framing layers. This is completely different from a blunt fringe. Instead of one hard line across the forehead, curtain fringes are cut longer at the outer edges and shorter toward the center part, so they part naturally down the middle and fall softly along both sides of the face like drapes framing a window. Here's why this specific shape works so well on a mature face. As we age, the forehead can start to look slightly longer, and the outer corners of the eyes can start to droop just a little. A curtain fringe addresses both at once. It visually shortens the forehead without a hard line, and the soft pieces falling near the outer eye corners lift and frame instead of drag downward. It's doing the same lifting job as the layered lob from part 1, just at the very front of the face where it matters most. The word to use with your stylist is blended. Every time. A curtain fringe should never be a separate section that looks cut apart from the rest of your hair. It should melt into the layers around it, so there's no visible seam. Ask for it to be cut dry, not wet. 2. Fringes cut wet often spring up shorter than expected once they dry, especially with any natural wave. And a fringe that lands too short loses the soft draping effect entirely. The snapback here is almost instant, and it's different from the lob. Where the layered lob changes how you're read from a distance, the curtain fringe changes your close-up. The version of you people see across a coffee table, in a video call, in a photo. Within days of getting mine cut, I noticed I stopped angling my face away from cameras. I didn't even realize I'd been doing that for years. Now for the second cut in this part, and it takes real nerve, the textured pixie. I want to be honest with you about something first. A pixie cut done wrong is the single most aging haircut on this entire list. Too short, too uniform, no texture at the crown, and it can read as severe rather than elegant. That's exactly why most women are scared of it. But a textured pixie done correctly might be the single most rejuvenating cut that exists for women over 60. The difference is entirely in one word: texture. Ask for a textured pixie with longer pieces left at the crown and point cut ends throughout. The longer crown pieces are what separate an elegant pixie from a severe one. They give you height and softness at the very top of your head, which draws the eye upward and lengthens the whole face in the same way the curtain fringe shortens the forehead. Point cut ends throughout keep every strand looking soft rather than blunt, so the whole cut has movement even at this short length. There's a specific reason a textured pixie reads as rich and elegant rather than plain. Short hair has nowhere to hide. Every layer, every angle, every texture choice is fully visible, which means it takes real skill to cut well, but looks genuinely luxurious when it's done right. It's the haircut equivalent of a perfectly tailored blazer. Nothing excessive, nothing hidden, just clean, confident shape. The before and after on this one is dramatic. Before, a fringe cut in a hard straight line at the eyebrows, aging the forehead, sitting stiff and unmoving through the day. After, a soft curtain fringe blended into face-framing layers, parted at the center, lifting the eye area and softening the whole front of the face. If you've ever wondered whether short hair could actually look rich rather than plain, wait until you see what happens when texture meets length at the crown, because the next cut on this list takes that exact idea and pushes it even further. Part 3. The shag that brings back your volume. There's a strange thing that happens to hair in your 60s that nobody warns you about. It can start to feel like it's giving up, even when nothing is technically wrong with it. It sits flatter. It looks thinner in photos than it feels in person. And most women respond by cutting it shorter, thinking length is the enemy, when actually the culprit is almost always the same thing: a lack of layering strategy. I want you to picture the difference between a house with one flat roofline and a house with a shaped, textured roofline that catches light and shadow. That's essentially what's happening with your hair. A single flat layer of hair, even at a flattering length, reflects light in one dull, even way. Shape and texture reflect light in dozens of tiny directions. And that variation is what your eye reads as fullness, richness, dimension. The fix here is the modern shag. Ask for a shag cut with heavy layering through the crown and shorter face framing pieces, textured with a razor rather than shears. This is a completely different structure from the layered lob in part 1, where the lob keeps layers longer and more subtle. A shag is deliberately choppy, with shorter layers built up through the top of the head to create real lift right at the root. The specific request that makes this work is root lift through layering, not root lift through product. Too many women try to solve flat hair with volumizing sprays and mousses. And while those help, they're fighting the cut instead of working with it. When the layering itself creates lift, when the shorter pieces underneath are physically pushing the longer pieces up and out, you get all-day volume that doesn't collapse by lunchtime the way product-only volume does. Razor texturing matters just as much as the layering pattern. A razor cuts each strand at an angle rather than straight across, which roughens the very edge of the hair slightly and makes strands grip against each other instead of lying flat and slick. That grip is what gives a shag its signature tousled, effortless movement. It's the difference between hair that looks done and hair that looks alive. Here's where the real transformation shows up. And it surprises almost everyone the first time they feel it. The shag doesn't just add visual volume. It changes how your hair moves when you walk, when you turn to talk to someone, when the wind catches it for half a second. That movement reads, instantly and unconsciously, as vitality. I remember a client story a stylist once told me. A woman who'd worn the same flat, controlled style for 15 years came in wanting something safe, and left in tears of a completely different kind after seeing a shag transform her reflection into someone she said she recognized from 20 years earlier. There's a detail specific to fine or thinning hair that makes this cut even more effective, and it's worth saying plainly: shorter layers weigh less than long ones. When hair thins with age, every extra inch of length is extra weight pulling down on roots that may already be working harder than they used to. A shag's shorter internal layers physically lighten that load, which is part of why the lift lasts so much longer through the day than it would on longer, heavier hair. One more phrase to bring to your appointment: graduated ends, not blunt ends. Graduated means the very tips are cut at slightly varying lengths rather than one uniform line, which keeps the choppy, textured look from ever sliding into looking unfinished or messy. It's a subtle instruction, but it's the difference between a shag that looks expensive and one that looks like it grew out wrong. Before this cut, hair sitting flat against the scalp, one dull even layer, reading tired in every photo regardless of how carefully it's styled. After, a razor-textured shag with heavy crown layering and graduated ends, root lift built into the structure itself, catching light and shadow in a dozen directions, moving with real life through every part of the day. If volume is what's been missing, wait until you hear about the cut that solves an entirely different problem. One that has nothing to do with shape, and everything to do with a mistake almost every woman over 60 is quietly making with her length. 3. Part 4. The length mistake, and the cut that finally adds real richness. Here's the mistake almost nobody admits to, myself included, for years. I kept my hair long because I thought long hair meant youthful hair. I associated cutting it shorter with giving something up. What I didn't understand is that past a certain point, length stops reading as youthful and starts reading as tired, because hair that's grown out for years without real shape starts to lose density at the ends, and thin, stringy length ages a face far faster than a shorter, well-shaped cut ever could. There's a real reason for this, and it's simply biology. Hair has a natural growth cycle, and the older each strand gets, the more sun exposure, styling heat, and every day where it's absorbed. Ends that have been growing for 3 or 4 years are simply more damaged and thinner than hair closer to the root, no matter how well you've cared for it. Past a certain length, you're not carrying more hair. You're carrying more damaged hair, and it shows. The first fix in this part is the graduated bob, cut just above the shoulders. Ask for a graduated bob, slightly longer in the front, shorter through the back, with weight left in through the crown. This shape does something specific and clever. It's shorter overall, so it sheds the older, more damaged ends, but the graduation from shorter back to longer front keeps real richness and body through the top of the head instead of leaving it flat. The word weight is doing real work in that request. Stylists use it specifically to mean hair that hasn't been thinned or layered away. A section left intact and full, usually through the crown or the very front, that gives the whole cut a sense of richness rather than wispiness. Combined with graduation at the back, you get a shape that's simultaneously lighter to carry and fuller to look at, which is exactly the paradox that makes a graduated bob so flattering on mature hair. The result here isn't subtle. Cutting away years of damaged, thinning ends and replacing them with a fresh, weighted shape can genuinely feel like your hair got healthier overnight, because in a very real sense, it did. You're simply no longer carrying the oldest, most worn-out inches. Every strand you see in the mirror is newer, stronger, glossier than what was there before. There's a second cut in this part, because richness isn't only about shape, it's also about how light plays across your hair. And that brings us to soft face-framing balayage layers. This isn't a color technique on its own, it's a cutting and coloring strategy working together. Ask your stylist for layers cut specifically to catch balayage highlighting, placed heaviest around the face. The layers aren't decorative here. They're structural, designed to create distinct planes of hair that each catch light and color slightly differently. Here's why this combination specifically flatters mature skin tones. As we age, our natural skin tone can shift subtly, sometimes cooler, sometimes with less overall vibrancy than it had decades earlier. Warm, soft highlighting placed at face-framing layers does something skincare and makeup alone can't. It reflects warm light directly up onto the face from just inches away, which brightens the complexion and softens shadows around the eyes and jaw in a way that reads, instantly, as healthier and more rested. A stylist once described this to me as painting light where you need it most. And that phrase stuck with me because it's exactly right. The layers create the physical structure. The balayage placed along those layers creates the light. Neither works quite as well alone. Ask specifically for the highlighting to be concentrated at the layers around the face, softer through the back. That placement ensures the brightening effect lands exactly where your face benefits from it most, rather than being spread evenly and wasted through hair nobody's looking at. The snapback moment with this combination tends to happen in photographs more than in the mirror, strangely enough. Flash photography and bright daylight both tend to flatten a single, uniform hair color, but layered, dimensional color catches and holds light in a way that reads as depth rather than flatness, which is precisely why so many women say they finally photograph well again after this specific change. Before, in this part, long worn hair past the shoulders, damaged and thin at the ends, a single flat color with no dimension, reading heavier and older than it should. After, a graduated bob with real weight at the crown, face-framing layers built to catch soft balayage highlighting, reflecting warm light directly onto the face. There's one more cut left on this list, and it might be the most surprising of all, because it's not really about the haircut itself. It's about the one thing almost every woman gets wrong at the very first step of the appointment, before the scissors even come out. Part 5. The consultation question that changes every cut you'll ever get. I'm going to tell you something that took me embarrassingly long to learn. The haircut isn't actually where most women go wrong. It's the 5 minutes before it, sitting in the chair, when the stylist asks, "So what are we thinking today?" That question is where almost every disappointing haircut of the last decade quietly began, because most of us answer it the same vague, unhelpful way every single time. We say things like just a trim, or something easy, or surprise me a little. And a stylist, no matter how talented, can only work with what they're given. Vague direction produces vague results. A cut that's fine, forgettable, the same shape you've worn for years with slightly less length. That's not a failure of skill. It's a failure of communication, and it's completely fixable. The final cut on this list is the tailored elegant crop, but more importantly, it's paired with the single question that ensures it's cut correctly for your specific face. What's my natural growth pattern, and where does my hair want to fall on its own? This question changes everything about how a stylist approaches your cut, because it shifts the conversation from what style do you want to what is your hair actually built to do beautifully. Every head grows hair slightly differently: cowlicks, natural partings, areas of natural volume. And a cut that respects that pattern will fall into place every single morning with almost no effort, while a cut that fights it will require constant styling just to look intentional. The tailored elegant crop itself is a short, precise cut, shorter than a pixie's longer variations, but never severe, with clean lines around the ear and neck and soft, textured length left through the top. Ask for a tailored crop cut close at the nape, with textured length through the top left long enough to style in more than one direction. That last part matters enormously. A crop that only works one way, combed in one direction, will look staged and rigid. A crop with enough length through the top to be styled forward, back, or side-swept gives you options every single morning. And options are what make a haircut feel elegant rather than restrictive. Here's the part almost nobody explains about why this cut, done with that consultation question, reads as genuinely rich rather than plain. Precision is expensive looking. A crop cut close and clean at the nape and around the ears requires real skill to execute well. And that precision is visually obvious even to someone who couldn't tell you why it looks so polished. It's the haircut equivalent of a perfectly hemmed pair of trousers. Most people can't articulate what makes it look expensive, they just know that it does. The snapback here isn't about how others see you for once. It's about how much time you get back. Women who make this switch consistently describe the same thing. Mornings that used to involve 10 or 15 minutes of blow-drying, product, and adjusting now take 3 minutes, because the cut was built to fall correctly with your natural pattern instead of against it. That's not a small thing. That's real time back in your life, every single day, for the rest of the years you wear this cut. I want to give you one more piece of language for this consultation, because it ties every single cut in this video back together. Before your stylist picks up a single tool, tell them plainly, I want a cut that lifts and softens my face, not just shortens my hair. That one sentence tells them your priority is the visual effect, not simply a change in length, and it will shape every decision they make from that point forward. Whether you've chosen the layered lob, the curtain fringe, the shag, the graduated bob, or this tailored crop, think back through everything we've covered. The layered lob that lifts a heavy, tired shape. The curtain fringe that softens the whole front of the face. The textured pixie that turns short hair into something rich rather than severe. The shag that rebuilds volume from the root up. The graduated bob and face-framing balayage that replace worn length with real richness and light. And now the tailored crop, built around your own natural pattern instead of against it. Before, in every case on this list, hair chosen out of habit, out of fear, out of just a trim vagueness that never actually changes anything. After, a cut chosen with intention, specific language in hand, built around your actual face and your actual hair's natural behavior. Reading as years younger, richer, and unmistakably elegant. 7 cuts, one real shift underneath every one of them. The moment you stop asking for the same, but shorter, and start asking for a shape built around your face. You now have 7 specific cuts and the exact phrases to bring into your next salon chair. Cheekbone layering, curtain fringes, razor-textured shags, weighted graduated bobs, tailored crops built around your natural growth pattern. This isn't guesswork anymore. You know exactly what to ask for, and exactly why it works. So tell me in the comments, which of these 7 cuts are you walking into your next appointment ready to ask for? I read every single one. Next week I'm covering the styling mistakes that quietly undo a great haircut the very next morning. You won't want to miss it. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.